It's wonderful to be back down under for the Australian Grand Prix. There may be several street circuits on the F1 calendar, but this unique lakeside layout is like none other. High-speed sections snake through the heart of Albert Park, just a few hundred metres from St Kilda's beach. Albert Park is a deceptively easy track to learn, but it's just as easy to make a mistake around its walled sections and gravel traps. The street circuit is high downforce and just as heavy on brakes as it is on tyres. Get ready for the Australian Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23, episode 79. And we are at Albert Park for this one. Flores qualified 17th, Tanaka qualified 19th, so at least we're not the back row for both drivers. At least we're not last place for either driver. It's still worrying times here into this third race of the season. I really did have hope that we would have at least a bit of an advantage with the car early in the year that could see us score some points in a couple early races. And right now, we can't hardly get off the back. That's worrying. It's worrying for the sake of our job as we complete lap number 1. Flores is up a spot. Tanaka is down a spot, 16th and 20th so far. We're going with a one-stopper, medium to hard strategy today. And I would imagine a lot of the field is doing that, but there might be some on softs trying to undercut and go to hards earlier. With 3 DRS sectors and a handful of corners that have been straightened out, smoothed out a bit, it's a lot harder to pull away and see things form, but eventually you'll get there in the end. But we're seeing the AlphaTauris, just about the only ones that are out of DRS range. Gasly. Flores up a spot around Hadjar. Hadjar is going backwards. We're up to 15th. Lap 9 already. Tanaka also around Piastri, so she's running above last for a change. So far in this early season, we've seen fewer mistakes from her. Got that rookie jinx out of the way maybe and settling in a little more stable. But Flores pushing up, getting around Maloney and Albon. Double overtake there.
Let's
see if we can see this one.
It was the Williams driver we see there.
Yeah, we had just passed the Alfa Romeo and we continue right along the outside of the AlphaTauri for the double overtake. 1 DRS sector. That gets us to the front of the train though, which is an obvious dangerous place to be, but all of a sudden 8 seconds has become 3.7. We actually have some pace in this car. So that's 13th. The first train is pretty much all the points contenders. They're not that far ahead of the next train, which is 4 seconds down. We are 3 seconds down in the following train. Overall, the field is still closely bunched up, but Piastri and Tanaka just battling it out for last place at the back are that little bit further back. Without DRS though, it's easy to drop backwards and Flores loses multiple positions. She's right back down to where she was in 15th now. Big incident with Tanaka. It's going to require an immediate pit stop for her.
Pushing a bit too hard
with Piastri still.
And the
just the two of them.
It's quite clear. Now their confidence
into the gravel.
Hits with that.
Front wing also major damage to the front wing. It's very early in the lap too, so that's unfortunate. It's going to be a ways around. Oh, Tanaka gets the penalty. So her advantage over Piastri is going to be gone. We'll see if she can come out somewhere around Piastri. She's got a near 5-second gap, but she's got a 5-second penalty. So right now, she's ever so slightly behind Piastri. Let's assume that Piastri also comes into the pits. Do they have to change a wing? Will they change their wing faster? Probably. The whole end plate is gone for Tanaka on this one. And yes, Piastri does enter the pits as well. Dragovic also entered the pits, the other Haas. But we served that penalty. Okay, that 5 seconds is already... Stop time was only 8.5. She didn't serve the penalty now. So she comes back out ahead of Piastri with still 5 seconds. That'll be tacked on at the end of the race. Go aggressive to get up to temperature. We'll focus on her for now. Florsch, meanwhile, is 14th. And I think we can push on these last couple laps for Florsch to try to move up to the head of the group and get ahead of the AlphaTauris. She immediately gets around Albon. I tried topping up to slowly fill the battery, and that did not do any good for either driver. Tanaka is 4 seconds ahead of Piastri, but of course holding that 5-second penalty. She did not serve. Figured there was enough time to enough notice before she entered pit road about the penalty to serve it, but didn't happen. Okay, she is up to temperature. She's not going to have the easiest time going the distance now. The one stopper with the mediums set us up. The softs are starting to pit now. I didn't want her to go on the softs because she's just not good on tires. This is going to almost certainly put her at or below 30% by the end of this thing. Couple lap difference there is key. But we've got a busy moment here. We want to try to get to the head of this group. We got squeezed out by the Alfa Romeo in the end because they're also getting DRS, so kind of a tricky sequence there, but it's 12th, 13th, and 14th that we're in the middle of, and it continues to be this close battle as now the other AlphaTauri squeezes us, almost drives into us there. That would have been a penalty for them for sure. We back out of it. We were sufficiently alongside, and they just went wide. The pit stop 2496 is a fairly slow one for us. We have pit before some others, though, so it is a chance to undercut a little bit. We're going to go aggressive on this out lap. That's one lap. Maloney in the pits, coming out. Comes out ahead of us. There's a lot of race left to go to be on the mediums. Zero ability by Florsch to preserve battery, even though we've made attempts at it. Going along the outside. 3 DRS zones, this should be pretty dang easy, but they're on mediums. The big thing is those mediums just are not going to last till the end of the race. No way. We were just on mediums. That they had life left, but they were going to lose pace. They definitely could have gone more than the 24 laps, 25 laps that we put on them, but not more than 30. And I guess that's what they're going to attempt to do. About 32, 33. They're going to really struggle at the end of this race, but it's going to be hard for us to keep up with them in the short term. However, now that Maloney is up to pace, Maloney's going to help pull us around for a while and eventually be a sitting duck in the final lap, so I guess it can kind of work out for us, but at the moment we're still only 16th. Tanaka's last. Piastri has caught and overtaken her and is now 4 seconds behind, so remember that our team is terrible on hards. Both of our drivers are terrible on hards. We just seem to lack pace. So it's actually going to be quite the feat for Florsch to keep up with Maloney here and then actually be able to come back at them later. You know, this is something we used to do with like Behrman or Sargent all the time. It was rather easy to do and keep up and then have the advantage late and then, you know, be able to push and move forward. It's not really been the case here. Sargent's fastest one out on track and has been closing up on us and bringing Hadjar with them, so that's not helping us. Norris into the pits. I don't think we're going to be anywhere near Norris. Norris is already rejoining the track a straightaway ahead of us. Handful of laps later, and guys like Albon are just now pitting, and they're coming out well behind us. Zhou, who had been well ahead of us, The undercut has worked there over a number of laps, brought us out ahead of him, but only by just over a second, and he's going to be presumably... He's on softs. Kidding me? 25 laps to go and he's on softs? I am not understanding this strategy. Everybody else is going like soft medium or medium soft, and here we are on medium hards because we don't have the kind of pace that others have, but a lot of cars pitting now. We're in 12th place. This is as close as we've been to the points. Tanaka is still last, 8 seconds behind Piastri now, still carrying that penalty and just going backwards. So Tanaka is not dealing with the hards well at all. To our knowledge, all she had was she's got other minor chassis damage and suspension damage as well. Not sure how she managed to get that. I could see if there was some underfloor damage. It was just gravel. And all they did was, touch wheels? So suspension? Okay, I could see some minor damage, I guess, from suspension, but how is there chassis damage? Like, that makes no sense. Look how we've already come back at Maloney now. The advantage of the mediums has already gone away in just 10 laps, and we are now starting to exceed the pace of Maloney, which means if we were to beat Maloney head-to-head, that's still only P11. Now you've got Zhou behind us, who's on softs and definitely going to have an advantage for the next 10 laps or so. Gasly is also just 2 seconds behind. Sargent's one who's never come back at us. Hadjar's never come back at us. Albon has only just recently pit, and we have a crash out there. Please, oh please, be one of those front runners. Be two of the front runners to take each other out. It's a Ferrari. It's a Red Bull. It's Russell. Russell all the time in this game. That's the same incident. That is the exact same incident that occurred with Tanaka. Could it be a penalty for one? Should. Could it be a penalty pit stop for both? I certainly hope so. Because that would put us into 10th now, battling for 9th. The cars behind us are obviously going to be quicker and dangerous, and that's difficult, but Russell and Verstappen, this is a battle at the front, and no penalty given. The exact same incident, no penalty. Verstappen does pit, Russell does not, and Verstappen's going to come out just behind us. Just behind us. So the field spread was such that Verstappen is out of the points for the moment, but only 13th and only a matter of seconds out of the points. That puts us up to 10th. We're in the points for the first time this season, driving in the points for the first time this season, or at least I think. And Verstappen's going to pull Hadjar and Sargent up to us, meaning we've got to train again. Drugovich pits, and we are up to 10th with Maloney and Zhou just ahead of us. We've got a chance for points today, but it's not going to be easy with Verstappen coming, with him pulling two other cars. So there's 3 there. There's one just behind us. So there's 4 cars that have a lot to say about whether we're going to score points today or not, plus the 2 cars just ahead of us. So 6 direct competitors and ourselves for 3 points paying positions. Obviously the front group is far, far away. Fuel, not a big problem, but we might have to lift and coast just a little bit before the end of this thing. Gasly has gone by and dropped out of DRS range, so we're down to 11th. Come on, we were doing just fine on pace. What's the problem now? We were keeping up with Maloney, absolutely no problem. I get that Zhou's on softs, but Gasly's just, it's the softs. It's the softs. So pushing to keep up. Maloney getting passed by Gasly. It's Verstappen, who's 0.2 of a second behind us while we were trying to push. And the tricky thing here is I desperately need to lift and coast a little bit. Now I kind of want to get this down to about 0.5 here in the next couple of laps, and I'm just not too sure on how we're going to manage to do that. Or we're going to have to do that, a couple corners at a time, really. We can't lift and coast for a lap or for 2 laps or anything like that. We're going to have to lift and coast for... Tanaka's also at 0.6, so we're still behind Tanaka. We pushed with Florsch there for a bit. Remember that outlap earlier? And then we gained nothing on that too. We pushed so hard on that outlap, and Maloney, who was just ahead of us, a lap later came out just ahead of us. More than just ahead of us. It seems like we lost ground on our outlap. Not liking the gap right now. We've got to close up a little bit here to Maloney and Gasly. Hadjar's out of DRS range. If we can drop Albin, Hadjar, all of a sudden we're down to battle, just for 12th. We've got to push again. This is not about saving fuel right now. This is about keeping that gap minimal. We're having a tricky final run here, but maybe, just maybe, it could be on, especially if those two are battling each other for a while. Okay, here's our place to lift and coast. So, Hadjar, out of range. Zhou, out of range. So our 6-car battle, or 7-car battle, is now a 4-car battle for the last 2 positions. And there goes Verstappen. Alright, well, we're down to 0.4. We're almost there on the fuel, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. But going forward is going to be tricky. For one, Verstappen, with the later pit stop and putting on mediums, even if they were used, Verstappen's going to be fine to the end. And, of course, that Red Bull has a ton of pace. So I think in the end, Verstappen's going to get to that P9 pretty easily, and you never know, might even pull us back towards Zhou, especially as those softs wear down in the final laps. Ooh, nice run there. Maloney's going to fade. Gasly definitely pit later. Gasly's but on softs. So Zhou and Gasly are going to fade because they're on softs. Maloney's going to fade because he pit on mediums way too early, and see he's well below where we're at. Verstappen, though, looks strong. So we're going to start to be off the pace here soon as we drop below 60. And we're starting to struggle to keep up, especially as Verstappen puts pressure on Maloney and Gasly. Tanaka is now 15 seconds behind. Not horribly off the pace, but definitely... Oh, no. Horribly off the pace. A lap down. And we're... What the heck just happened? In 2 corners. 3 corners. As I looked at Tanaka. Just a quarter of a lap, maybe? We've got to be aggressive and push forward if we're going to have any chance, and we've got to avoid Drugovich coming back at us, so we're going to light him up for a little bit and see if we can't get back up there. Verstappen has gone around Maloney. Once he gets around Gasly, we're going to be in even more trouble as we can't keep up with his pace, and he's going to drag them around for a little bit. We are closing back up, though, with the push. 1 point. Drugovich into DRS range. And our push forward has made some progress, but we've also lost at times as they slinky up with DRS to Verstappen now. If Verstappen gets away from Gasly, though, quickly, if Verstappen, who's gone around, can get more than a second ahead of Gasly, Drugovich went right on by. Wow, come on. How do you lose Drugovich in just a few corners? I'm not Florsch does not have the pace here late. We need to go attack mode. She's too... Drugovich caught and passed Maloney. Like, just flew. What the heck? But we drop below that 60% and we have no pace. She was kind of doing okay when she had good life in these. Others, they have bad life and they still have better pace than us. She's losing ground very, very quickly here. I was hopeful, I was optimistic that with micromanaging, with help, with support, she would be more competitive, she would keep up, and she is. I mean, I guess to an extent, she's 13th instead of, 19th, but we had a chance. But others taking a much more bold strategy than what we're doing, and I think that comes down to our engineers looking at our smoothness ratings going, you can't handle soft to medium. But we are coming back at Maloney right now, who is... Zhou, Stroll are all about to start losing a lot of pace. Obviously, Stroll doesn't matter. 20-second gap there, but maybe still a chance to go forward. The fuel is good now. We are burning through the last of the life in these, but I mean, come on, it's 2 laps to go. Final lap now. For them, not quite yet for us. Off the track. Lost 8 seconds, or 5 seconds. in pits. We've caught up to Maloney and Drugovich and Gasly with Verstappen at the head in the final lap. We've got half a lap to go. Deploy. Can we get a position back? Push. Norris takes the win ahead of Ocon.
Lando Norris wins it. He's first over the line.
Just a couple corners to go. Final corner. We've caught back up to 4 cars here, but didn't have the battery, which we tried to save earlier and couldn't get anywhere with that. And didn't have the. They did go backwards at the end, but it was too late. It was too late for us. We end up a second behind 9th place. We're not that far off. We will get points. I could tell we will get points at some stage, but it's not looking great. We do beat AlphaTauri today. Both Albon and Hadjar are behind us, but everybody else, Drugovich, Gasly would have put a couple more teams behind us on the day, but it was not to be. Right now, Alfa Romeo look the clear number 6 team. Aston Martin get their first point of the season, while AlphaTauri sit on 1 point. Haas and myself are the ones who have yet to score. Haas clearly seem to be most off pace, but that's the 3 teams we're battling with: Aston Martin, AlphaTauri, and Haas this season. That's pretty clear. Florsch is not 19th. She is 17th in the standings, so she has had a better finish today than a couple other drivers have managed so far this season, but it's going to be pretty dang difficult. But 7th could still be in the cards. If all 3 of these teams are struggling like we are, and points are inconsistent and, 9th, 10th place finishes, we've still got a chance to, bag a couple good finishes that aren't just 1 or 2 points, but, like we did last year with Florsch, where she had 7 in one weekend. That wouldn't necessarily be enough for us, not one single time, but it would make a pretty good dent into what we need this season to be kind of hoping for about 8th this year. That should be enough to keep our job. It's early days yet, but really we've already had half a season with this driver pairing, so it's really not too early for us to start having issues. But for now, we still have high confidence. But as we have a turn of the month driver development update, +2 on accuracy for Florsch. It's not good for her pace, but it will be good for keeping her races clean. Tanaka looking a bit better on this side, though. +1 to braking, that's pace. +1 to smoothness, she desperately needs that. +1 to adaptability, okay, well, it's 3 points. 2 points, 3 points. It's something. 2 useful points anyway. And as for Brun, +1 to smoothness, adaptability, overtaking, 2 to defending. She continues to get the most, and she's not that far behind Tanaka. By the end of April, we will be higher than we've ever been for pit crew attributes during a season. Yeah, we'll be at 19%, but that's because we're coming straight out of a race weekend. We'll only have 1 day after that. Going into that race weekend, we'll actually be at 0%. But estimated pit stop time down to a 2.43. So that's where we left off last season. The car building will be up a few points from where we were last season. So that is everything either at or where we left off just by the end of April, with things continually improving from there. Things are going really well on the pit crew front, not on the pit crew performance front. We've started to have some better pit stops than what we had that second half of last year for whatever reason. I don't know if the reality is you do have something about how crew chief and driver, how well they do together, how well they gel, and as that's something that builds really slow for us, as remember we have really weak crew chiefs, really low level crew chiefs who have focused on things other than that bond, because that bond can build over time and becomes less important. To my knowledge, it's only impacting the driver morale piece, which then does impact how they do in the race. And for Tanaka, we've seen lots of mistakes, so lower morale is actually not good at all. it's one of the less important pieces on what you're getting out of that pit crew, especially if you remain consistent. You're not swapping staff regularly. You're not swapping drivers regularly. Once they build that bond, it should remain. So even though it takes time and you come with that downside of them building that relationship over the long term, that becomes a less important thing. Short term, sure, it's important, but long term, it's not a big deal. But if they continue to have tension because of a low rating, well, I guess that does have a long-term impact. But we don't know if that's the case or if that just happens as an event randomly, regardless of the ratings of your driver or your pit crew chief. Likewise, I've already talked about the in depth as to why the car building is such a weaker rating for me than other areas. But anyway, getting that pit stop time back down, bringing that down, getting it under a 2.4 is a huge goal for me this season, getting it into that 2.3 range. It's going to be another year of minor technical changes. Honestly, I know the best thing for our team long term would be major technical changes, even though we have the best car, because even though that would impact us a little bit more than it would everybody else, we've already seen in the past, it stretches the field when you start new regulations. And we might have the best car now, but the field's so compact that it's barely better. And when you throw in the driver impact, it makes us worse. If you stretch the field more, we have a bigger advantage, lessening the impact of the driver disadvantage, giving us a more competitive balance. So minor technical changes are bad for us. We're looking at airflow focused changes. So engine cooling, airflow sensitivity, airflow front. That's quite a few parts, actually. That's a lot of parts that changes. Changes a lot of parts. How do we want to do that, though? More to the engine cooling side or the airflow side? Well, we're good in the airflow side. We're not good in the engine cooling side, so we want to go with the engine cooling focus changes. And the engine cooling is the side we've gone with. So actually, this has worked out decently well for us. It's not a minor change. I mean, we're looking at 3010s, and so there's no 20s in here, but that's a lot of impacted components. In fact, it's 6 impacted components. So the entire car is impacted by this one. And the primary issue is engine and brake cooling, which is the one area that we are well behind everybody else in. Meaning, we're not that number one car that's going to take a huge hit. We are that back of the grid car taking a hit that becomes a little less severe than others, and it impacts every single component. So it's a little more than minor for this technical change. It's pretty moderate, and we're less impacted. So I'm pretty happy with how that has gone, other than the fact that it wasn't a major era change. Looking at the specific car part details, I'm trying to see if there's a particular part that's in really good shape right now for this year that we could actually just start researching on very early and knock out a lot of projects without dipping into the time constraints that we have, because we have lots of engineers but we have limited simulator time and whatnot. So the chassis is third in drag reduction. It's 13th in engine cooling, but it is at 87%, where that drag reduction is at 84. Airflow's at 7th. Lifespan's at 19th because we've shed the weight. For the front wing, the low speed, medium speed, I'm surprised we're actually not at the front for this one. Front wing's a lot weaker than I thought it was in comparison to other cars. So we should be working on that front wing here a bit more. Airflow sensitivity is very good. That's something that's going to take a bit of a hit, right? The brake cooling also. But we're at 86 to 90% on those. And again, we've shed a lot of weight. Rear wing. Rear wing is good, but not perfect. Actually finding some surprises here. I really thought we were higher up overall We're not necessarily at the top. It's just the sum of our parts that puts us at the top, apparently. Side pods. Airflow is the best there, and that's only 84-85, surprisingly. Second for drag reduction. One car is just above us. Engine cooling, again, on the lower side. But again, it's also our highest number. But we haven't gone through any sort of technical changes in this area for a long time, which is why this 30% knock is going to be huge for some of these cars, because we are good. We're just not where everybody else is. If anything is going to be first or close to first, it seems to be the underfloor. It also seems that I need one upgrade. I need one more upgrade. The drag reduction is best, the airflow sensitivity is best, and the downforce is definitely good, but it's not top. So one more underfloor upgrade for this season, and I think I'm going to make an early departure off of the underfloor and start researching for next year, getting a huge advantage on the underfloor for the coming season. That starts, much stronger. The airflow sensitivity will take an impact, I believe, on the underfloor for the coming year. Suspension, still really weak. I just finished our suspension simulator upgrade. It was in really sad shape also, and now it's top of the state-of-the-art. 5th upgrade complete. So our suspension actually is due for some really solid upgrades. We're still in that low mid 80s here. I think we can start to see some really good gains on the suspension if we invest in that one now, but we don't have any time until the next period begins. So I think next up for us, we're going to do an underfloor upgrade and a suspension upgrade once we have the time, kind of going 50-50 with everything we have out of those. We're already on our 3rd suspension, by the way, and it's still like that. But we'll go 50-50 onto those two things. And then once the underfloor is done, it's going to be research for the whole rest of the season, non-stop on underfloor, whether it's two engineers at a time or whatever it is that we have to spare.
Greetings from Azerbaijan, where we're back in the country's capital. Well, it's not every weekend that Formula One arrives at a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but arrive here we have. Drivers will race around the historic streets of Baku, which includes the race calendar's tightest corner, beneath a medieval fortress wall. Baku City Circuits challenges drivers like... Our sprint today sees... Now's the time for the sprint, here in Baku.
It's a sprint race here at Baku, the dreaded sprint weekend. Flourish qualifies 17th, Tanaka is 20th, and this is a notoriously difficult race for us, even for our 80-something overall drivers. They have not performed well at this circuit, even with a balanced car. I do think we were in the points for like the first time last year with Behrman, so maybe it's a acceptable one, but that long straight, we have great top speed, yet we don't seem to be able to make the best of it. I think it's tight twisty bits. It's sector 2 where we seem to lose a lot of time here, which comes down largely to drivers that just do not have the ability to put in top pace. You can see as we end lap number 2, we're already out of DRS range on someone ahead of us, so this is looking to be one of those scenarios where we're just going to suck it up and get this mess over with. By lap 5, we are down to 19th and 20th. By lap 6, both cars are out of DRS range, not only of each other, but of the rest of the grid. Though Tanaka has actually caught up to Flourish here by lap 7, but we're 4 seconds off pace of anybody else. Alfa Romeo is also off the pace here. Aston Martin is also off the pace here. Alpha Tauri, at least, is only 12th and 15th, so none of the ones we need to worry about are looking to be scoring any points right now. Haas, though, is Drugovich, Piastri, Drugovich in particular, all the way up in 6th place. Drugovich down to 8th by lap 14. That's good for us. Safety car has been deployed. Had a crash, but it's not us. That's the important part here. And it's Joe. This is the end of the 2nd straight. Just a big lockup. front end straight into the wall. Right front in particular,
like that,
definitely
the
would have
hopes of the
smashed
team
the
start to
suspension up
dwindle.
there. Just locked up, didn't hit the running area. Blocked us, that's Joe right there. So that takes it to a red flag. Red flag, we should be able to go by, but okay, fine. I did not want to waste a set of tires, however, we have 3 sets left, so I suppose we'll waste a set here for Flourish. We don't need 3 of them for the race.
And it's lights out. And
From the
away
back
we
of the
go.
grid, and it's only a 2-lap sprint, so all in for these couple of laps, huh? Tanaka restarts from 18th, Flourish from 19th. Heading into the final lap of the sprint, Tanaka is all over the back of Maloney, but not going to get a look on this one. DRS is enabled for this final lap, but it's all in one big train. I suppose there are a couple 1-second intervals out there. Final regular corner. We still got a little kink in the road, another kink in the road there, and we exit out, attacking on last 2%.
Over the finish line
Not
to
able,
win the
not
sprint.
even attempting to come out from behind Maloney, and that's still 18th and 19th anyway.
Final checks are being carried out on the grid, and it won't. This is what you've been waiting for. It's the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
So from 18th and 19th on the grid, I've already swapped strategy to a soft medium one-stopper, as it looks like we're capable of doing it. The strategist didn't even think that was going to be possible, and yet it seemed pretty dang easy to do. Has everybody else opted for the same? No, a lot of the grid on mediums. So will the extra pace help us out in this one? I've also underfueled by 2 laps on a 51 lap race, which means either we're going to need a VSC, a safety car, or definite need of some lift and coast at some stage. But will this allow us to keep up better than what we did in that sprint race, where we were clearly off the pace compared to everybody else that was even on softs then? But everybody was on softs. Now, a number of cars are going to be on mediums. Oh, we got a yellow flag. That's us.
And there's
That's
been
us.
quite a crash. Right,
That
let's
is
have a look
us.
now.
Great.
Around turn 3. Not
Just
a lot of wiggle
at the
room
beginning
here.
of lap
Has
3.
to be said, that
Not
was
sure
pretty
who was the
risky.
one that turned in, but that's a lot of damage to both cars. I'm going to go ahead and retire Tanaka so she doesn't do any more damage. Flourish, meanwhile, no penalty, but we've dropped to 49%. I think I could have pulled a Sergio Perez and unretired the car, serve my penalty so they don't give it to me later, and then re-retire the car, as if that's a thing. But Flourish, 6 seconds off the back, and we'll have to pit soon, which will go to the hards and try to go to the end of the race. I hope for a... Yeah, we're going to try mediums. We're too far off the back anyway. We're going to try mediums. We're going to give it one more lap, and then we're going to go to the mediums and hope that we can make it to the end of the race. The hards are never going to have enough pace, and a VSC would definitely help us move up, or allow us another opportunity to pit later on. 2.563, a very, very slow stop for our standards. Almost 2 tenths off the pace, or at least 1.5 off the pace. And yeah, it looks like those mediums could just about make it to the end of this race. By the way, we have some pretty serious gearbox damage from that incident, and minor suspension damage from that incident. And that's a brand new chassis and some brand new suspension also. So happy, joy. For now, Flourish well behind everybody else, 34 seconds back. But with brand new mediums, her pace is holding there or thereabouts to the front of the field. 34 to 35. She's only lost less than 1 second over about a 6-lap span, which means she's gaining on those at the back of the grid, because that's to the front. No, that is not to the front. That's not to the leader. That's to Zhou behind us, which means we are off pace as well. Zhou is the only car that we were even remotely close to before, but Zhou pits and comes out a dozen seconds ahead of us, and within about 2 laps turns that into 14. Recover that fuel, as the only incident of the day has been Tanaka crashing into her teammate. Yay us! Go team! With 10 laps to go, we've almost gotten the fuel right, but we've also almost backed ourselves up far enough now for us to get lapped in it, not to matter. Of course, we are driving a damaged gearbox and a damaged chassis and a damaged suspension. It's almost as if we need to retire both cars. But it's Verstappen leading from Porsche, Norris, Ocon, Leclerc. Tsunoda, multi-race winner and 3-time podium guy on the season so far, only 7th today. Haas is in the points. That's worrying, but Drugovich down to 10th. But a big gap behind means Haas looks set to score at least 1 point today. And we have absolutely gotten hammered. We are now a lap down with 3 laps to go. Might as well say what's left of this engine. It's going into the bin for the most part, though. It's going to become our practice engine after this one. I hate these sprint weekends. I hate the damage that they put into your vehicles, the extra strain. So I like using the more used components. So we're still on our first set of everything. We'll now be switching to our next set when we head to Miami. But we're only 4 races in. But this then becomes your practice set for a long time. From this point forward, of course, Flourish now has that damaged gearbox, so it's not going to last that long before we're going to have to go to another one. We made the tires last. Woohoo! That's our only achievement of the day. We did get a 13th last race. We were close to the points. We were a 2nd out of the points last race. Like I said, this is one of our weaker tracks, though. Even if Tanaka doesn't crash into Flourish and ruin both their days, we weren't looking like we were going to be competitive, as it were. Still doesn't make it significantly less disappointing. It does make it less disappointing about what happened, but it still stings. Especially the damage to both cars. Lots of components. Wasted money. Not a fan. Not a fan. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.